Welcome back to Beyond the Quarterly, where we dive deep into the latest edition of the McKinsey Quarterly.
Always a fascinating read.
It is, and I'm your host, ready to unpack some seriously thought-provoking ideas.
And I'm the expert guide here to navigate us through it all.
Now, before we jump in, quick reminder, we are not affiliated with McKinsey & Company in any way.
Nope, just two podcasting enthusiasts who love exploring the insights they offer.
Precisely. And this quarter, that takes us to the intersection of technology and tradition, the theme for the Q4 2024 edition.
Intriguing combo, right? Especially since this issue also marks the quarterly's 60th anniversary.
60 years, can you imagine? That's some serious staying power in the world of business analysis.
Makes you wonder what those early editors would make of today's business landscape.
Right. The pace of change is mind-boggling. But I guess some things never go out of style, like the need for strong leadership and the ability to adapt.
Speaking of which, the intro letter to this issue highlights a challenge that's got to be keeping CEOs up at night, shrinking CEO tenure.
Oh yeah, the average tenure for an S&P 500 CEO is the lowest it's ever been.
Talk about pressure. No time to ease in. It's all about navigating constant change from day one.
Which is probably why leadership in a tech-driven world is such a prominent theme throughout this issue.
And speaking of tech-driven worlds, let's talk about the elephant in the algorithm, or should we say the AI in the room.
I like that better.
The special report, The State of AI in Charts, really lays out how rapidly generative AI is being adopted.
The numbers are pretty astounding. Nearly two-thirds of companies surveyed are already using Gen AI in at least one function.
Huge jump from just last year. Businesses are clearly seeing the potential.
But as with any powerful tool, it's not all sunshine and roses, right?
Right. The report also emphasizes the risks, particularly concerns around accuracy and intellectual property.
Yeah, it's not about blindly embracing the new shiny thing. It's about understanding the whole picture, the good, the bad, and the potentially ugly.
Precisely. And speaking of ugly, this report doesn't shy away from the potential downsides. A surprising number of organizations have already experienced negative consequences from using Gen AI.
44% of those surveyed reported at least one negative consequence.
Which really underscores the need for careful consideration and proactive risk management. I mean, jumping in head first without understanding the risks is a recipe for disaster.
Absolutely. But amidst those risks, there's a sense of optimism, too, especially when you look at the insights from Michael Dell in his interview.
Oh, yeah. When the CEO of Dell Technologies speaks, people listen. And he's not just talking about AI, he's betting on it.
Dell Technologies is positioning itself as an end-to-end solutions provider for the AI era.
Okay.
So what's his take on how this is all going to reshape our world?
Well, he's pretty straightforward about it. He believes AI will fundamentally change how we live and work, and that this is just the beginning.
It's amazing to think we're still in the very early stages of this AI revolution.
It is, and the question on everyone's mind is, are robots going to take our jobs?
The million-dollar question.
Well, Dell's perspective is actually quite encouraging. He believes that AI will augment human capabilities rather than replace them.
Okay, so not the robot apocalypse some might fear.
Not according to Michael Dell. He actually encourages knowledge workers to embrace AI as a tool.
That's a powerful message. Coming from someone like him, it's a reminder that we have the power to shape how this technology evolves.
And that brings us to a really important point, that this issue highlights the importance of leadership in a tech-driven world. It's no longer just about understanding the technology itself, but about understanding how to lead in a world that's constantly being reshaped by it.
It's like navigating uncharted territory. You need a leader who isn't afraid of the unknown and can guide others through uncertain times.
Absolutely. And when we talk about navigating uncertainty, we can't ignore the wider tech landscape beyond just AI.
Right. It's not just AI. The Tech Trends 2024 section of this issue offers glimpses into what might be on the horizon, things like space tech, quantum computing, robotics, even something called smart agents.
Some of these sound straight out of science fiction, but they're closer to reality than we think.
And that's what's so great about the Quarterly. It helps us connect the dots between these seemingly separate trends.
Helps us start to see how they might converge to shape the future.
And that's where I think the Quarterly really excels. It challenges us to think critically about the implications of these trends for both business and society as a whole.
It's about asking the right questions, exploring different perspectives, and being open to the possibility that the future might look very different from what we imagine today.
Okay, so we've set the stage, we've talked about the rise of AI, and we've hinted at the broader tech landscape. But what does all of this mean for those on the front lines, the leaders tasked with steering their organizations through these turbulent waters?
That's where things get really interesting. Let's move on to part 2, where we delve deeper into the evolving role of leadership in a tech-driven world and explore the specific challenges and opportunities facing tech leaders today. So picking up where we left off, let's unpack what the Quarterly has to say about leadership in this tech-driven world. They have a really interesting article that focuses specifically on tech leadership and how that role is evolving.
Okay, so we're zooming in from the big picture to the specific challenges facing tech leaders. What's the Quarterly's take on that?
Well, they highlight this growing pressure on CIOs to be more than just like tech support, you know?
Yeah.
It's not enough to just keep the systems running anymore. They need to be actively shaping business strategy and driving innovation.
Makes sense. I mean, if technology is so central to pretty much every business these days, the people leading the tech side need to have a seat at the strategy table.
Exactly. And the article outlines 3 emerging roles for tech leaders that kind of capture this shift: builder, protector, and operator.
Okay, I like that. Let's break those down. What does each role entail?
So the builder is all about creating new business models, using technology to unlock new opportunities. They're the ones looking ahead, anticipating trends, experimenting with cutting-edge technologies.
So the visionaries, the ones pushing the boundaries.
Exactly. And then you've got the protector, which is a pretty crucial role these days.
Yeah, especially with all the cyber threats we hear about constantly.
Right. The protector is all about managing those cybersecurity risks, making sure the organization's data and systems are protected.
I mean, cybersecurity is a huge deal. It seems like every other week there's a major data breach or some kind of cyber attack.
It's a never-ending battle, and the stakes are so high. So the protector role is really about building that culture of security, making sure everyone's aware and prepared.
So we've got the visionary builder, the vigilant protector. What about the operator?
Well, the operator is more focused on the day-to-day running of the tech infrastructure, making sure everything runs smoothly, systems are integrated, technology is seamlessly supporting the core business functions.
Keeping the engine running, making sure all the parts work together.
Precisely. And the article makes this point that successful tech leaders will need to be versatile, able to kind of move fluidly between these 3 roles.
So it's not enough to just be a specialist in one area.
Right. You need to be able to see the big picture and adapt to different situations.
It's kind of like being a conductor of an orchestra, right?
Oh, I like that.
You need to understand how each instrument contributes to the overall sound. But you also need to guide the entire ensemble and adapt to the nuances of each performance.
That's a great analogy. It really speaks to that complexity of tech leadership today. It's not just about technical expertise anymore. It's about leadership, strategy, communication, and that deep understanding of how technology impacts every part of the business.
There's a quote from the article that really stood out to me. It says, "The shape of tech leadership is moving into business and functional leadership."
Yeah, that's a powerful statement. And it really emphasizes that companies need to rethink how they approach tech leadership.
It's not about relegating tech leaders to the back office anymore.
Exactly. It's about empowering them to be at the forefront, shaping the future of the organization.
You know, when we were talking earlier about all that pressure on CEOs and their shrinking tenure, it makes you wonder if this shift in tech leadership could actually be part of the solution.
Oh, that's an interesting thought.
I mean, if you have strong tech leaders who can think strategically, drive innovation, it could take some of that pressure off the CEO.
That's a really good point, and it speaks to how interconnected all these trends really are, The rise of technology, the changing role of leadership, the need for agility and adaptability, it's all part of the same picture.
We can't look at these trends in isolation. We need to see the connections, the patterns, how it all fits together.
And speaking of patterns and connections, remember that special report on AI we mentioned earlier?
Oh yeah, the one with all the charts and data.
Yeah.
Hard to forget that one.
Well, let's jump back into that report in part 3 and really unpack some of the key takeaways about the current state of AI adoption, the risks, the opportunities, and what it all means for leaders trying to make sense of this rapidly evolving landscape.
All right, let's dive back into that McKinsey Quarterly special report, The State of AI in Charts. It really gives you a sense of just how much generative AI has taken hold.
What strikes me is how much the conversation has shifted from, should we adopt Gen AI, to, okay, we're adopting it, but how do we do it responsibly?
Yeah, it's not a question of if anymore, it's when and how.
Exactly. Even a year ago, there was still a lot of debate about whether this technology was ready for prime time, but now it seems like the train has left the station.
And the how is where it gets tricky. The report definitely doesn't sugarcoat the potential downsides of Gen AI. Things like accuracy concerns and intellectual property issues.
Remember that stat we mentioned, 44% of organizations experiencing some kind of negative consequence?
Yeah.
Well, the report actually digs a little deeper into what those consequences look like.
Oh, interesting. What are they seeing?
Well, the top three reported consequences were inaccurate or biased outputs, unexpected or undesirable behavior from the AI, and then difficulty in validating the AI's outputs.
So these aren't just hypothetical risks. These are real issues companies are dealing with.
Exactly. Which is why it's so important for organizations to go into this with a clear understanding of the potential pitfalls and a solid plan for mitigating those risks.
It's like that old saying, measure twice, cut once. You got to do your homework before you unleash the AI.
Right, because at the end of the day, technology is a tool, even something as groundbreaking as Gen AI.
And like any tool, it can be used for good or for, well, not so good.
It all comes down to the skill and the intention of the user.
Which brings us back to why the Quarterly's focus on leadership is so important. In this world where technology is changing everything so quickly, strong leadership is more crucial than ever.
It is. You need leaders who can navigate uncertainty, make informed decisions, and guide their organizations through these uncharted waters.
It's about recognizing that technology is not the solution in and of itself.
Right.
It's an enabler. It's a tool that can help us achieve great things. But it's up to us as leaders to define the purpose, set the direction, and make sure we're using these tools responsibly.
Couldn't agree more. And that ties back beautifully to this issue's theme, technology and tradition.
Right.
As we've gone through these articles, we've seen how traditions, those enduring leadership principles and strategic thinking, how those are actually more important than ever in this tech-driven world.
It's about striking that balance between embracing innovation and staying true to the values that guide us.
Exactly. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I think that's the key takeaway. Technology may be advancing at an incredible pace, but the fundamentals of effective leadership, smart strategy, and ethical decision-making, those are timeless.
They are. It's been another fascinating journey through the McKinsey Quarterly. We've covered a lot of ground, from the rise of generative AI to the changing face of leadership.
And we've only scratched the surface. There's so much more to explore in this issue, so if you're intrigued, definitely check out the full edition.
Yes. Go deeper dive into those articles that really pique your interest. And for all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this exploration of technology and tradition. We hope it sparked some new ideas and maybe even inspired you to apply some of these insights to your own work and life.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.